Miners in Texas, though, have been powering down amid heat wave and record electricity demands. I powered down a rig yesterday. We'll talk about that in a second. Due to high temperatures in Texas this week, energy demand sets a new record high for the month of June. For some Bitcoin mining companies, this means more off time as the state's grid operator signals peak times pricing go up. High temperatures in Texas this week have led to a record-breaking power use levels for the month of June, presenting a test for state's power grid. And the heat wave has had implications for some of Texas Bitcoin mining operations. Energy demand hit a peak of 72,386 megawatts on Monday, setting a record for June, only to be surpassed the following day when demand hit 72,785 megawatts, according to data from the Electricity Reliability Council of Texas, ERCOT. The all-time record was 70,257 megawatts on June 23rd of 2021. An influx of Bitcoin miners into the state has raised questions about the potential consequences for its grid. Quote, ERCOT expects sufficient generation to meet forecasted demand, end quote, ERCOT told the block via an email Thursday. Many Bitcoin miners in the state have set agreements with ERCOT to power down at peak energy demand times. Advocates say this kind of flexibility can be an asset to the grid. BitDeer said that while this week's record-breaking temperatures were unusual, the company would respond as it normally does when demand goes up. The company curbs power during times of peak demand on the grid, and when electricity prices get too high, it responds to signals from the retail electric provider, ERCOT traders, and power consultants. Quote, we curtailed operations on June 7th during the late afternoon and will continue to do so when monitoring usage on the grid as well as rising temperatures, end quote, a BitDeer spokesperson said via an email. We power down by using automated software triggers when power costs reach certain price points, they added. Bitcoin miner Argo said earlier this week that it had mined 25% less Bitcoin in May for a variety of reasons, one of them being the time it had to shut off power due to higher temperatures. Quote, that was probably worth about 5 Bitcoin in terms of higher temperatures, end quote, Argo CEO Peter Wall said in a video posted Tuesday. Quote, we voluntarily curtailed a couple times. Energy prices went up. We gave that power back to the grid, and that happened on a couple of occasions. Riot has recently indicated that it would also likely be curtailing operations this week as temperatures went up. Next week, they're predicting 100 degrees, 5 days of 100 degrees. We will turn out power off, and during that time, that power that we're not using can be used in the grid itself so that it can support 200,000 or 300,000 homes in and around our community, said Chad Harris, Riot's chief commercial officer, on May 31st in a video the company recently published. We already know, we're already setting up, we're already checking everything. Harris was speaking at the company's Whinstone facility, which is expected to reach a total capacity of 750 megawatts when fully built out. Now, it's not going to get much better because we're already at 104 degrees for today. We're really not in the mid of summer. We're in June. And in Texas, we still have July and August to get through. And we got some time to really before this problem kind of goes away. Coming up with a good strategy for these large facilities is going to be extremely interesting. Obviously, as a smaller miner in Texas, I pay attention to it. It doesn't affect me as much because I don't have quite the power that these kind of guys do. But I have shut off a rig that was primarily due to a power supply failing due to heat. And then I'm just leaving it off because I have a new solution coming in. So we left that rig off. It's pretty crazy out here right now, though, for heat, and obviously power costs are going up for a lot of people. We had that weird charge that I covered this month that was due to the winter storms from a long time ago, apparently a catch up from them, which I haven't even been with this particular company since then, so I have to call them and kind of try to fight that a little bit personally, because that put our margins down to I think we only made $140 for last month on mining, which is pretty awful. I'd like to hear from you guys that are in Texas and what you're experiencing with it as well, because I find it kind of like a super relevant topic surrounding cryptocurrency. I know that some companies have a deal with their power companies in Texas that when they shut off, they make more money, or they get a portion of that power back. I think you have to be pretty large for that. And then I know that there are some areas where You can basically have higher prices during peak time, so you turn off the miners during that time and then cycle them back on. So there's lots of different ways that people are handling this. I'm going to be trying to work on I need to talk to some of the bigger miners to get an idea of what they're doing and figure that out. Obviously, there's also the flare gas solution that a lot of miners are using, which basically acts as a battery backup for that as well. So there's lots of different ways in which this is being handled, but it is making it extremely more difficult than when we saw a majority of the hash rate in, of course, China with cooler temperatures. So it's fun. Bitcoin miners will see a 29% rate hike on hydroelectric power in Washington. Charging Bitcoin miners the highest rate wasn't enough. Shelland County now has implemented a new crypto rate that's 29% higher. So it's okay, well, Texas is having all these heat issues, but at least they aren't doing a 30% rate hike on you, right? The promise of cheap hydroelectric power for Bitcoin miners in Washington state has started to fade. A 29% rate hike for hydroelectric power in Shelland County, created specifically for cryptocurrency miners, went into effect on June 1st. The miners used to pay a lower high-density load rate for their electricity. Now they'll pay newly created cryptocurrency rate known as Rate 36. Quote, what we did as a commission and what we did as a utility was industry leading to create new rate for this type of demand, end quote. Gary Arsenault, a Shelland County Public Utility District Commissioner, told local news outlet KPQ. I mean, at the basis of this, isn't this some sort of discrimination towards miners? You hike the rates? It's weird. If you hike the rates for cryptocurrency miners, you have to hike the rates for data centers. That's my opinion. Washington state accounted for about 2/3 of all hydroelectric power generated in the U.S. in 2020, according to Energy Information Administration. The state's Grand Coulee Dam, located on the Columbia River in Grant and Okanogan counties, powers 6,809 megawatt. The cheap and renewable hydropower has made Washington state a popular destination for Bitcoin miners too. Washington state accounts for 4% of the total U.S. hash rate in December, according to the Cambridge Center for Alternative Finance. Hash rate is a measure of total computer power on a blockchain. Each hash represents a guess at a cryptographic string. On proof-of-work blockchain networks like Bitcoin, the miner that correctly guesses it wins the right to verify a block worth of transactions and receives a reward. 1 exahash represents 1 quintillion such guesses and requires a lot of power. Washington's share of U.S. hash rate isn't the biggest by a long shot. Georgia accounts for 31%, Texas and Kentucky for 11% each, and New York generates 10%. I had no idea Georgia was 31%. Although that could change if New York Governor Kathy Hochul signs a 2-year crypto mining moratorium into law. She's expected to veto or sign the bill next week. Last year, publicly traded Canadian Bitcoin miner Bitfarms acquired a 24 megawatt Washington facility that's powered by the Grant County Public Utility District. The facility generates 17% of the power required to run Bitfarms' entire 3.4 exahash operation, which includes Quebec, Canada, and Paraguay. But now there's been some pushback. KPQ also reported that nearby Douglas County has stopped allowing new Bitcoin miners to set up operations there because they already consume 25% of the county's available energy. Still, the Shelland County rate hike won't ban crypto miners. For companies that have made substantial investments in their mining facilities, officials have approved transition plans to gradually increase energy rates over the next 2 years. Quote, we need to have some sort of transition that's important for business, end quote. PUD Commissioner Ann Congdon told, I don't know how to pronounce any of these, Wenatchee there we go, World on Tuesday. I understand how the business need that in order to plan. Even with transition plans in place, there has been criticism from the crypto industry. Malachi, CEO of Salcedo Enterprises, told the local news outlet that the new rate would force him to reconfigure his 3 Shelland County crypto mining facilities into data farms. He has 4 other crypto mining facilities, 2 in Douglas County and 2 in Grant County. Under the new pricing plan, he can keep his shell and facility on lower high density energy rate if he processes data instead of mining crypto. The data processing uses the same amount of power as crypto mining, he told Wenatchee World. So, I mean, like I said, this is really hilarious because he's going to consume the same amount of power, but all he's doing now is like basically a data center. You cannot tell me that that makes any sense whatsoever. It just doesn't make any sense. Bad move over there in Washington. Bad moves all around. I hope you enjoyed this clip from the Crypto Mining Morning Show every Monday through Friday, 7:45 a.m. Pacific and 10:45 a.m. Eastern Time. You can check out more clips here, or if you're interested in checking out the entire live show, you can check that out down here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next Tuesday.